You've been taught to hustle, to push harder, to never stop grinding. But what if the very act of trying so hard is what's keeping it all away? What if calm is the real currency of creation, and letting go is the trigger for everything you've been chasing? This isn't about giving up. It's about aligning with the truth. The more desperate your energy, the more resistance you create. In this audiobook, you'll discover the secret power of surrender, the magnetism of stillness, and why the universe responds when you finally release control. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The more you force, the more you block. There's a hidden cost to pushing too hard. Every time you force an outcome, you send a signal to the universe that you don't trust its timing. You act from fear instead of alignment. You move with desperation instead of faith. And though you might believe you're being productive, what you're really doing is resisting the flow that's trying to guide you towards something far better than your mind can plan. Force creates tension internally and energetically. It tightens your body, clutters your thoughts, and clouds your intuition. You begin to act reactively rather than intentionally. What should feel inspired becomes heavy. What once felt clear becomes confusing. And in that state, even your best efforts fall flat, because the energy behind them is misaligned. The universe doesn't respond to control, it responds to coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and energy are grounded and in harmony, your desires manifest naturally. But when you force, you break that harmony. You separate from presence. You try to overpower timing, forgetting that everything you want is already on its way, if only you'd get out of your own way. Desperation is not a magnet, it's a repellent. The more you grasp, the more things slip through your fingers. This is not punishment, it's protection. Because when you try to force something into your life before you're ready or before it's ready, you disrupt the divine sequence that ensures you receive what is truly meant for you. Think about how many times you've chased something only to feel exhausted, burned out, or disappointed. And yet the things that changed your life most often arrived without pressure. They came when you were relaxed, open, and detached. That wasn't a coincidence, it was alignment. That's what force blocks alignment. When you're in a state of force, you ignore the quiet whispers of intuition. You override the gentle nudges that say wait, or rest, or pause. You make decisions from the mind, not the soul. And while the mind is smart, it's not wise. It can only calculate based on what it knows, while the soul sees what's coming before it arrives. Letting go doesn't mean giving up, it means trusting. Trusting that what's meant for you won't pass you. Trusting that rest is not laziness, but restoration. Trusting that your energy speaks louder than your words or actions. And when that energy is peaceful, magnetic, and calm, life starts to cooperate in miraculous ways. When you stop forcing, your nervous system relaxes. You become more creative, more intuitive, more open to unexpected blessings. You shift from survival mode into receiving mode. This is where real transformation begins, not when you do more, but when you align more deeply with the truth of who you are and what you deserve. You cannot control the unfolding, but you can control how you show up for it. Do you meet the moment with tension or trust, with panic or presence, with fear or flow? These choices, subtle as they seem, determine what doors open and what blessings land in your life. Energy first, action second, always. You don't have to prove your worth through struggle. You don't have to chase validation through effort. You are not more deserving just because you suffer. In fact, the more aligned you are with ease, the more you step into your power. The things you once tried to force will begin to find you and stay, because you're no longer pushing them away. So much of what you want is waiting on the other side of surrender. Not passive surrender, but powerful surrender. The kind that says, I trust what I've asked for is already on the way, and I'll no longer block it with doubt, fear, or obsession. That is the gateway to miracles. That is the secret the overachiever never learned. Let this be your new approach. Less tension, more trust. Less grinding, more flowing. Less panic, more presence. You've tried force. You know how it feels. Now, try alignment. Try stillness. Try letting the universe surprise you, not because you did everything perfectly, but because you finally stopped standing in your own way. Chapter 2. Calm is a magnet for clarity. Calm is not the absence of action, it's the presence of alignment. When your energy is calm, your vision clears, your decisions become sharper, the noise fades, and what truly matters rises to the surface. In this state, you're not rushing toward answers. You're creating the space for answers to naturally arrive. In a world addicted to urgency, calm feels rebellious. But it's in calm that your mind quiets enough to hear what your soul has been whispering all along. When you slow down, you reconnect. You return to yourself. And in that return, clarity begins to pour in, not from effort, but from presence. Clarity doesn't live in chaos. When you're anxious or overthinking, you blur your own vision. You mistake fear for intuition and reaction for wisdom. Calmness filters your inner world. It helps you separate emotion from truth. It reveals what's real beneath the layers of worry, doubt, and noise. Calm brings coherence to your energy. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions begin to move in the same direction. You feel less scattered, more focused. You stop trying to solve everything at once, and instead trust the natural unfolding of the next step. Clarity doesn't demand pressure, it responds to peace. When you're calm, your nervous system sends signals of safety to your body. This opens up access to higher thinking, creative problem-solving, and deeper insight. You're no longer reacting from fear, you're responding from inner knowing, and that shift, subtle as it may, obeys everything. Calmness is a high frequency. It doesn't mean you're disengaged, it means you're grounded. It's the opposite of being numb. In fact, calm allows you to feel more, not less, because you're no longer being hijacked by frantic energy. In that space, you can sense the difference between impulse and guidance. Clarity arrives when you're no longer trying to force it. Think of muddy water. You don't clear it by stirring it. You let it settle. Your mind works the same way. In stillness, the confusion begins to settle. What's false drifts away, and what's true becomes visible. You can finally see what's been waiting beneath the noise. You've been taught that doing more creates results, but clarity often comes from doing less with more presence. A few calm, aligned actions are more effective than 100 frantic steps. Calm isn't weakness. It's strategic. It positions you to move when it truly matters, with full power behind every choice. When you slow down, you start noticing what you've been ignoring. The signs, the subtle red flags, the intuitive nudges you brushed off. Calm heightens your awareness. You no longer miss the obvious because you're no longer racing past it. In calm, you begin to notice the difference between what's urgent and what's important. Calm allows you to navigate pressure without collapsing. It's not about avoiding stress, but about maintaining inner spaciousness even in the midst of challenge. When you're calm, you're not consumed by the storm, you become the eye of it. Still, centered, and quietly powerful. Clarity is a natural byproduct of peace. When you're not overwhelmed by options, fears, or timelines, your direction becomes obvious. What once felt confusing becomes simple, because the truth is rarely complicated, it's just buried beneath layers of noise. Calm clears the layers. Truth reveals itself. In calm, you reconnect with your own voice. The world gets quieter. The opinions of others lose their grip. You stop outsourcing your knowing and start trusting your own inner compass. That trust is clarity. It doesn't need explanation. It simply feels right, like a deep exhale after holding your breath too long. Calm gives you time to respond, not react. In that space between stimulus and action lies your power. You get to choose, not based on habit, but on truth. You pause, you reflect, and from that stillness, you move forward with certainty, not confusion. That is how clarity leads. Many breakthroughs don't come in the middle of work. They come in rest, in a walk, in stillness, in silence. The moment you release your grip on the answer, it floats to the surface. This is the paradox of calm. The less you chase, the more clarity comes to you. Not from force, but from flow. Let calm be your new default. Let it be the baseline for your decisions, your responses, your energy. Because calm isn't just a feeling, it's a frequency. And that frequency is what attracts clarity, direction, peace, and ultimately, the life you've been working so hard to create. Let calm lead. Clarity will follow. Chapter 3. The Art of Letting Go Without Giving Up. Letting go isn't defeat, it's intelligence. It's the choice to stop gripping what's hurting your energy, clarity, and peace. Many confuse surrender with quitting, but they are worlds apart. Quitting is rooted in hopelessness. Letting go, on the other hand, is rooted in wisdom. It says, I trust that forcing this is no longer in alignment with who I am becoming. There's a subtle power in knowing when to release. Sometimes, the very thing you're clinging to is blocking what you've been asking for. You've prayed for clarity, peace, or progress, but your hands are full of fear, control, and attachment. Letting go isn't about losing hope. It's about making space for a better outcome to arrive. True surrender is an act of alignment. It means stepping back and allowing the intelligence of the universe to move in ways your mind can't predict. You don't stop caring, you stop controlling. You don't abandon your goals, you release the attachment to how and when they must arrive. That's not giving up, that's evolving. Letting go requires trust in unseen order. It asks you to believe in timing you can't dictate and outcomes you can't manipulate. It challenges the ego, which wants to manage every step. But your higher self knows that your most powerful moments often come after surrender. That's when space opens and miracles enter. Holding on tightly can become self-sabotage. You begin to pour energy into resistance instead of allowing things to unfold. You overthink, overdo, overreach, and in doing so, you exhaust your power. Letting go isn't passive. It's active faith. It's saying, I've done what I can, now I trust what I can't control. Some things aren't meant to be fixed, they're meant to be freed. That relationship, that outcome, that version of who you thought you were supposed to be, if it's weighing you down more than lifting you up, it may be time to release it. You're not weak for letting go. You're brave for recognizing what no longer serves your soul. There's a kind of peace that only comes after release. When you stop wrestling with what doesn't feel right anymore, your nervous system softens, your mind clears. You realize how much energy was being drained just to hold on. In the stillness that follows, clarity whispers truths you couldn't hear before. Letting go doesn't erase what was, it honors it. You can love someone and still walk away. You can value a dream and still redirect. You can be grateful for a chapter and still know when it's over. Surrender isn't disrespect. It's deep respect for your energy, your time, and your truth. You don't have to know what comes next to let go of what's not working. Often we stay stuck because we fear the unknown more than we fear misalignment. But the truth is, freedom doesn't require a full map, it just needs a next step. Letting go is the step. Trust follows. To surrender is to say, I choose peace over pressure, flow over fear, truth over attachment. That choice isn't always easy, especially in a world that praises the grind. But real transformation comes not when you force the path, but when you finally release the one that no longer fits. Letting go is an act of self-respect. It's choosing not to beg for energy, love, or clarity from things that keep you in confusion. It's remembering that you're allowed to walk away from what keeps you small. You don't need permission to reclaim your power, you just need the courage to release what dims it. You're not abandoning the vision, you're allowing a better version of it to find you. Sometimes you outgrow what once fit perfectly. That doesn't mean you were wrong, it means you've expanded. And in that expansion, certain doors close, so better ones can open. Letting go is how you say yes to that evolution. Letting go without giving up means you still believe in your path, you're just no longer fighting against it. You're not in resistance, you're in trust. You're not inactive, you're receptive. And from that place of calm openness, life begins to respond with synchronicities, clarity, and new direction. You'll know you've let go when your peace returns. When you stop checking, forcing, obsessing. When your worth is no longer tied to an outcome. When you can breathe again. That doesn't mean you don't care, it means you finally understand that caring doesn't require control. Letting go isn't the end. It's the beginning of alignment, of peace, of clarity. It's the moment you stop rowing upstream and finally let the current carry you. And as you flow, you realize what's meant for you never required that much struggle. It was always waiting just on the other side of release. Chapter 4. Why Surrender Isn't Weakness. Surrender has been misunderstood for too long. Many associate it with quitting, losing, or backing down. But real surrender is not weakness, it's wisdom. It takes strength to release control, to trust timing, and to walk away from force. Surrender is not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing from a place of alignment, not desperation. In truth, surrender is power refined. It's the moment when you stop struggling and start trusting. It's when you realize that the universe knows more than your fear-driven mind. You stop demanding answers and begin to listen. You stop chasing and start receiving. That shift isn't giving up, it's stepping into your true strength. Weakness is forcing what doesn't fit. Weakness is pretending you have it all figured out when your soul knows better. It's clinging to certainty because you're afraid of change. But surrender? Surrender is the courage to say, I'm open to something better than I can currently imagine. That kind of openness is the doorway to real transformation. There's nothing passive about surrender. It takes more inner strength to let go than to keep fighting what no longer serves you. You are not surrendering because you're incapable. You're surrendering because you're wise enough to realize that your effort is no longer the answer. The answer lies in your release. Surrender invites life to flow again. The more you try to control everything, the more life resists. But the moment you let go, you unlock movement. Opportunities reappear. Energy shifts. The right people arrive. What was stuck begins to unravel, not because you forced it, but because you stopped interfering. When you surrender, you're not handing over your life, you're aligning with a higher intelligence. You stop trying to carry the entire world on your back. You let life support you. You make space for divine timing. You stop shouting, I know better, and begin to whisper, I trust the process. It's a quiet kind of power. The power to rest when others rush. The power to stay grounded when everything feels uncertain. The power to hold peace in a world addicted to pressure. People may not understand your calm, but that's okay. You're not living for their approval. You're living in your truth. Surrender humbles the ego. The part of you that thinks it always knows what's best begins to soften. You realize that your perspective is limited. That life, in its vastness, has a wisdom you've only begun to glimpse. Surrender says, I trust that I don't need to know it all to be okay. There's strength in saying, this is no longer mine to carry, in choosing stillness instead of struggle, in allowing space for something new to enter. When you surrender, you stop swimming upstream. You turn around and let the current of life take you not into passivity, but into alignment. Most people think control is security, but control is exhausting. It disconnects you from intuition. It narrows your vision. It creates rigidity where there should be flow. Surrender softens that grip. It allows clarity to return. It reminds you that security doesn't come from control, it comes from trust. You begin to see that surrender is not giving in to defeat, but rising into trust. It's not weakness to step back, it's wisdom. You are not abandoning your dreams. You are simply allowing them to unfold in a way that honors your peace. You stop demanding and start aligning. In surrender, you remember your wholeness. You no longer try to fix what was never broken. You stop seeking validation from things that are constantly shifting. You root yourself in the eternal, in the stillness within, in the knowing that you are already a new Vevan without the outcome. Surrender gives your soul room to breathe. The tension leaves your body. The obsession with outcome fades. You find yourself resting not because you've lost hope, but because you've finally found trust. This rest is not escape, it's embodiment. You've come home to yourself. You begin to feel the subtle difference between effort and force. Effort is natural, aligned, flowing. Force is resistance, urgency, fear. Surrender helps you return to effort that feels good, effort born from truth, not pressure. You're still moving, but now from a grounded center, not a frantic edge. Sometimes, surrender means staying open in the face of disappointment. It means releasing the need to understand why right now. It means choosing faith, even when the plan looks unclear. That's not weakness. That's the deepest form of trust. And in time, that trust always reveals its reward. When you surrender, your energy becomes lighter. You're no longer burdened by what you can't control. You no longer waste time fighting battles that aren't yours. That freed energy returns to you. It fuels your creativity, your joy, your presence. It reminds you what you were truly made for. Surrender is how you move from survival into creation, from fear into flow, from mind into heart. You stop micromanaging life and start partnering with it. You release the timeline. You detach from the how. You say, show me something better, and that invitation unlocks miracles. You'll be misunderstood. People will think you've given up, but they don't know what you know. They don't feel what you feel. You don't need to explain your surrender. Your peace will speak for itself. Your alignment will create results that silence every doubt. Let your energy do the talking. And in that surrendered space, you finally remember you were never supposed to carry it all. You were meant to co-create, not control, to trust, not tense. Surrender isn't weakness. It's the return to power, the kind that doesn't shout, chase, or strain but attracts, aligns, and receives. So, stop running from surrender. It's not your enemy. It's your entry point. It's where you stop fighting the world and start flowing with it, where your grip softens and your heart opens, where you stop trying to make life happen and finally allow it to meet you where you are, in trust, in stillness, in truth. Chapter 5. Control is just fear in disguise. Control often feels like power, but it's not. It's the armor fear wears to feel safe. When you feel uncertain, control steps in and whispers, if I just manage every outcome, I'll be okay. But deep down, Control isn't rooted in confidence. It's rooted in a hidden anxiety that says, I don't trust life to hold me. The need to control everything is a symptom of inner chaos. It comes from believing that if you don't do it all, things will fall apart. But what you don't realize is that your grip is what's causing the tension. Control doesn't bring peace, it delays it, and often it pushes away the very flow you're seeking. Control stems from the fear of loss, fear of pain, fear of being caught off guard. So we create routines, timelines, rules thinking these things will keep us safe. But true safety doesn't come from controlling life. It comes from trusting yourself to respond to whatever life brings. When we try to control everything, we close ourselves off to miracles. Control is narrow-minded. It only allows for one outcome, usually the one we've already imagined. But the universe often has something better in mind. And if you're too busy clinging to your version, you might miss the one that's truly meant for you. Fear disguises itself as logic. It says, be realistic when your soul is begging you to dream. It says, play it safe when your heart longs to leap. Control feels smart because it's calculated. But it's not always wise. Wisdom listens to intuition. Control listens only to fear. The tighter you grip, the more things slip. That's not failure, it's feedback. Life is trying to teach you that force doesn't work here. That flow is the language of truth. That surrender isn't weakness, it's the only doorway to peace. Control might feel strong, but it's brittle. It cracks under pressure. You may think control gives you stability, but it actually gives you stress. You're constantly managing, micromanaging, planning, and overthinking. Peace becomes conditional. Happiness becomes fragile. Because when anything deviates from your plan, your foundation shakes. Control keeps you in survival mode. It's the nervous system on edge, always scanning for threat, always anticipating what might go wrong. This drains your energy, clouds your mind, and distances you from the present moment. You become reactive instead of responsive, tense instead of trusting. Letting go of control doesn't mean becoming careless. It means becoming conscious. Conscious of when you're acting from fear versus truth. Conscious of how your energy feels when you're forcing. Conscious of how much more powerful you become when you lead from alignment instead of anxiety. When you release control, you start to breathe again. You begin to trust that you don't need to know all the answers right now, that you're safe even in uncertainty, that your worth isn't tied to perfection. That life is still unfolding for your good even when the path feels unclear. Control can look like over-planning, over-explaining, over-committing. It can look like avoiding stillness, avoiding change, avoiding vulnerability. But behind every one of those behaviors is fear. The fear of not being enough, the fear of being unprepared, the fear of being hurt again. The truth is, control never really protected you. It only numbed you, numbed your intuition, numbed your spontaneity, numbed your ability to truly feel and flow with life. When you start to trust again, that numbness begins to melt, and what's left is presence. Presence is where power lives. Real strength is in flexibility, in being able to adapt without losing yourself, in being able to bend without breaking. That's not what control teaches. It teaches rigidity. But life isn't rigid. Life moves, shifts, expands. And when you move with it, instead of against it, you find peace. Notice when control rises in you. It's often triggered by discomfort. Something unpredictable, something unknown. Instead of reacting, pause, breathe. Ask, what part of me feels unsafe right now? What am I afraid might happen? That awareness begins to dissolve the illusion that control is the answer. Fear often convinces us that certainty equals safety. But certainty is an illusion. The truth is, you've made it through countless unknowns. You've adapted, adjusted, and grown in ways you never planned for. That means you're more capable than you think, and you don't need control to prove it. When you control, you protect the version of you that's scared. But when you surrender, you empower the version of you that's ready to trust again, ready to move forward without panic, ready to live fully not from fear, but from faith. That version of you is already within. The world won't fall apart if you loosen your grip. In fact, it might fall together. The blessings you've been praying for don't need force, they need space. Space to arrive, space to unfold, space to surprise you. Control clutters that space. Trust clears it. Let go of the belief that you have to manage every detail. Let go of the pressure to predict every outcome. Let go of the illusion that your worth is measured by how well you hold everything together. You are not here to control life. You are here to experience it, grow through it, and trust its rhythm. Your peace is not a product of control. It's a product of surrender. And the more you surrender, the more you begin to feel safer, not because everything is perfect, but because you know you'll meet whatever comes with grounded strength. Control is just fear in disguise. Let trust reveal what power really feels like. Chapter 6. When you trust, things flow. Trust is not something you foresee, it's something you feel. It begins as a quiet knowing deep within, a calm that tells you everything will work out, even if you don't know how yet. When you start operating from trust, you stop trying to control every step and start allowing the path to reveal itself naturally. It's not about being passive, it's about being open. When you trust, you move differently. You don't rush, you don't panic. You allow space for timing to do its work. Trust is the bridge between intention and manifestation. It's the invisible thread that pulls everything together behind the scenes. What looks like nothing happening is often the very moment everything is being rearranged in your favor. Trust allows your nervous system to relax. And when you're relaxed, you're more creative, more intuitive, more magnetic. You begin to move in harmony with life, not against it. Instead of chasing, you attract. Instead of doubting, you align. That shift doesn't require effort, it requires faith. The energy of trust is gentle but powerful. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply says, I know I'm guided. That energy sends out a frequency that tells the universe, I'm ready to receive. And in response, life meets you where you are, not because you forced it, but because you flowed with it. Flow is what happens when trust is present. Things line up, opportunities appear, people cross your path at just the right time. But none of it feels like coincidence, it feels like alignment. That's the magic of trust. It opens the gates to synchronicity, to divine timing, to outcomes that logic could never have created. Without trust, you block the very things you want. You tighten your grip. You question every step. You get stuck in overthinking and miss the gentle signs. But when you trust, you see those signs clearly. You feel nudged instead of pushed. You're not driven by fear. You're guided by faith. There is a rhythm to life, but it's only accessible when you stop trying to rush it. Trust helps you tap into that rhythm. It teaches you to wait without anxiety and act without hesitation. That balance between patience and action is the essence of flow, and it only becomes available through surrender. Trust transforms waiting into preparation. Instead of asking, when will it happen, you begin asking, how can I align today? That one question changes your energy. It moves you from desperation into readiness. And readiness is what opens doors that force never could. When you trust, you give yourself permission to rest. You stop measuring your worth by your productivity. You stop equating stillness with laziness. You understand that some of the most powerful shifts happen not when you're doing more, but when you're being more present, grounded, receptive. The universe isn't moved by panic, it's moved by peace. Trust allows you to hold that peace even when things look uncertain. You stop reacting to appearances and start responding to truth. You stop chasing the outcome and start aligning your energy. And suddenly, everything begins to move. When you flow with trust, resistance fades. You stop fighting what is. You stop needing constant proof. You stop bargaining with life. You start showing up with confidence, even in the unknown. That quiet confidence becomes your superpower. It anchors you when everything else feels uncertain. Trust doesn't mean you always feel calm. It means you choose calm anyway. It means that even when doubt creeps in, you remember what you've already seen work in your life. You remember how far you've come, how many times things unfolded when you least expected them. That memory fuels your faith. Flow can't be forced. It has to be felt. And that feeling begins the moment you stop needing guarantees. When you release the obsession with outcomes and begin focusing on alignment, you shift your entire vibration. That vibration is what makes you magnetic to what is meant for you. Sometimes things don't move because you're gripping too tightly. Trust teaches you how to let go not of your vision, but of the pressure. It teaches you how to breathe again, how to rest in the space between action and reward. And in that rest, you regenerate, you realign, you receive. Trust gives life permission to surprise you. When you're no longer trying to predict everything, you become open to miracles. You start noticing the small blessings, the unexpected wins, the quiet moments of grace. That openness is what allows abundance to flow freely toward you. You begin to realize that trust isn't about having all the answers, it's about being okay without them. It's knowing that clarity will come when you're ready, that what's meant for you will arrive, and what's not will pass without force. That kind of trust doesn't weaken, it liberates you. Every time you choose trust over tension, you rewrite your story. You stop repeating the same anxious patterns. You start creating from peace. And creation from peace is far more powerful than creation from pressure. It carries a different frequency, one that the universe responds to without resistance. When trust becomes your foundation, you no longer chase time, you align with timing. You stop feeling behind. You stop comparing your journey. You understand that delay isn't denial, it's preparation. And you honor the process without needing to rush its perfection. In flow, life becomes a dance. You're not pushing, you're not forcing, you're responding, you're allowing. You're moving when it's time and resting when it's needed. You're not afraid of missing out because you know what's meant for you will never require you to betray your peace. So trust, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's not. Trust in the timing, in the unfolding, in your own ability to rise and receive. Trust is not just a mindset, it's a frequency. And when you hold that frequency, life flows toward you in ways that effort alone could never create. Trust becomes easier when you stop needing certainty and start choosing alignment. The mind craves guarantees, but the soul seeks expansion. And expansion doesn't come through control, it comes through surrender. When you truly trust, you no longer grip the outcome. You align your energy, take inspired action, and allow what is meant to arrive in its own perfect way. When you're in a state of trust, time stops feeling like a threat. You no longer panic when things take longer than expected, because you begin to understand that timing is part of the transformation. Trust teaches you that just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not happening. Sometimes, the delay is protecting something sacred inside you, something that needs time to fully unfold. In the energy of trust, you begin to move with grace. You stop running from moment to moment, and instead begin to walk with grounded presence. You notice the beauty in small things, the wisdom in simple signs, and the guidance in everyday moments. Trust slows you down, not because you're lazy, but because you're finally tuned in to what matters most. Fear convinces you that you're behind. Trust reminds you that you're exactly where you need to be. There is no race. No one is ahead of you. Everyone is on a unique path, with unique lessons. Trust liberates you from comparison. It returns your focus to your own lane where your real power lives. When trust leads, your actions feel inspired, not forced. You no longer chase every opportunity out of fear of missing out. You discern. You move when the energy feels right. You say no without guilt. You wait without fear. That kind of clarity doesn't come from pressure, it comes from inner peace. There's a quiet freedom in no longer needing to control how things happen. Trust doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to stop blocking what's already yours. You care enough to clear the clutter. You care enough to believe that you are supported, even when you can't see it yet. The deeper your trust, the less noise you need. You don't need to constantly explain yourself. You don't need endless validation. You don't need everyone to agree with your path. When you trust your inner knowing, that knowing becomes your compass, and it always points you home. Life begins to feel lighter when you stop carrying everything on your shoulders. Trust teaches you that you're not alone, that there's a divine intelligence orchestrating things behind the scenes. And even if it doesn't match your timeline, it always matches your soul's growth. You start to experience peace even before the outcome arrives. That's how you know trust is working. You no longer wait for the result to feel safe. You begin to feel safe in the becoming. You hold peace in the unknown. And from that space, you attract not just what you want, but what you're truly ready for. Trust softens your need to prove. You no longer operate from survival mode. You're not driven by fear of failure. You're driven by purpose, by clarity, by deep connection to your higher path. That energy is magnetic. People feel it. Opportunities recognize it. It's the frequency of readiness. Even your struggles feel different when you trust. Instead of thinking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" That shift in perspective empowers you. Trust allows you to turn challenges into lessons, and lessons into wisdom. When you move with trust, you learn to live in harmony with uncertainty. You no longer wait for everything to make sense before you take the next step. You walk by faith, one small step at a time. And with each step, you realize the path reveals itself, not before you move, but because you move. Trust turns waiting into preparation. You stop obsessing about the destination and begin preparing your energy to hold what you've asked for. You refine your thoughts. You elevate your habits. You become the version of you who's ready not just to receive, but to sustain. You begin to feel supported by life instead of punished by it. You start to sense that everything is happening for your highest good even when it feels difficult. That's not blind optimism. That's rooted, grounded trust. It's a knowing that your journey is unfolding in divine order. The more you trust, the more you stop reacting to appearances. You stop judging a moment by how it looks and begin feeling into what it's revealing. You become more intuitive, more aware, more aligned. That level of trust sharpens your discernment and calms your emotional responses. You start releasing attachments not because you don't care, but because you trust what stays will grow, and what leaves wasn't meant to go further. That detachment doesn't close your heart, it frees it. It allows you to love without fear, act without tension, and receive without clinging. Even your sense of identity begins to shift. You stop defining yourself by outcomes. You stop chasing worth in results. You begin to root your confidence in who you are, not in what happens. That kind of trust gives birth to authentic power that isn't shaken by temporary setbacks. Trust brings rhythm back to your life. It teaches you when to move and when to rest, when to speak and when to listen, when to hold on and when to release. That rhythm creates flow, and that flow creates a life that feels aligned, not just externally, but deeply within. So keep trusting, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because the more you trust, the more life reveals what's truly for you. Not the version your ego demanded, but the version your soul was always calling in. Let go, breathe, flow, and remember, trust is the doorway. Flow is what waits on the other side. Chapter 7. Letting go creates space for miracles. Letting go isn't losing, it's clearing. It's releasing what clutters your heart, your mind, and your energy. And when you do, space opens. Not empty space, but sacred space, where something new, higher, and better can arrive. Miracles don't come to chaos. They come to calm. They don't compete with noise. They wait for stillness. Most people try to manifest from a place that's already full of doubt, full of timelines, full of attachment. But when your hands are full of what no longer serves you, how can you receive what's meant for you? Letting go is an act of faith. You say to the universe, I trust what's leaving will be replaced with something greater. It's a paradox. The moment you stop clinging, things start arriving. Miracles don't need to be forced. They need to be invited. But invitation isn't desperate energy. It's grounded openness. It's the calm, steady belief that life is not working against you, but waiting for your alignment to catch up to its gifts. Letting go is not giving up on the vision, it's giving up on the pressure. It's detaching from how it must happen, who must stay, and when it must come. You stop demanding that life obey your script and instead begin dancing with what is. That surrender makes you magnetic to surprises beyond your logic. Some of the most beautiful shifts happen when you release what you thought you needed. The people who left, the plans that crumbled, the paths that turned into detours. In the moment, it felt like loss. But later, you realize it was space being created. Space for real alignment. Space for truth to take root. Holding on often comes from fear. Fear of starting over, fear of uncertainty, fear of missing out. But nothing real is lost when you let go of what's not aligned. What's meant to stay will stay. What's meant to go will go, and the more gracefully you release it, the faster peace finds you. Letting go is a message to the universe. I trust you. Not just with the good, but with the unknown. And in return, the universe mirrors that trust with blessings you didn't see coming. Not because you forced them, but because you made space for them by no longer forcing what wasn't meant to be. You can't create miracles from a place of tension. Creation requires flow. Flow needs faith. And faith starts with release. When you stop obsessing over what hasn't arrived, you start aligning with what's already on the way. That energetic shift is what opens doors effort could never unlock. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you start healing. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to hold. You stop replaying the past and start reclaiming the present. That presence becomes fertile ground. And miracles love to grow in grounded, grateful presence. So many people hold on to struggle as identity. They think their pain is proof of effort. But life doesn't reward pressure, it responds to energy. When your energy is light, detached, trusting, life flows. You don't have to fight for what's already yours. you just have to make space for it. Every time you let go of something that drains you, you tell your soul, I'm ready for more. More alignment, more peace, more love that doesn't require sacrifice of self. And in that space, miracles rush in not because you earned them, but because you stopped blocking them. Letting go brings clarity. The noise fades, the expectations dissolve. What's real remains, and often what remains is exactly what you needed all along. You just couldn't see it under the weight of attachment. Miracles aren't rare. They're just often hidden beneath the things we refuse to release. If you want more peace, more ease, more joy, check what you're holding on to. What conversations play on repeat in your mind? What fears still grip your actions? What outcomes are you clinging to? Letting go of those opens the energetic gates, and what flows in will always be lighter. Sometimes letting go is a choice. Other times, life makes the choice for you. A door closes. A person walks away. A plan fails. In those moments, grief is real, but so is grace. You're not being punished, you're being cleared. Cleared for something that couldn't land until you were empty enough to hold it. You are not fragile because you let go. You are powerful. It takes strength to release, to trust without proof, to walk forward without dragging the past behind you. But every time you do, you become more aligned, more awake, more open to the miracle that's been trying to reach you. Letting go doesn't always feel good at first. There's discomfort in detachment. The mind panics. The ego resists. But on the other side of that discomfort is freedom, a kind of emotional spaciousness that allows your spirit to breathe again. And in that breath, life begins anew. The miracle isn't just in what comes after letting go, it's in who you become during the process. You become clearer, calmer, more connected to your intuition. You begin to live from your center, not your fear. That shift in identity is itself a miracle, a silent, powerful rebirth. You weren't meant to carry everything. You weren't meant to force what's not flowing. Letting go is returning to your natural state, light, trusting, receptive. That's the state where miracles feel at home, where they don't have to compete with control, where they land softly and stay. So the next time something feels heavy, stuck, or draining, ask yourself, is this something I truly want or something I'm afraid to release? Let that question guide you, because more often than not, your miracle is waiting just on the other side of letting go, and all it needs is a little space. Letting go often begins with a whisper, an inner nudge that something is no longer meant to be carried. It might be a relationship, a belief, a version of yourself. That whisper is your soul trying to clear space for something higher. When you ignore it, life speaks louder. But when you listen, things begin to shift with grace instead of pain. Some attachments feel safe simply because they're familiar. But safety is not the same as alignment. Familiar doesn't always mean right. Letting go allows you to separate comfort from truth. Just because you've held it for a long time doesn't mean it belongs in your future. Miracles need you to be honest, not loyal to what hurts. There's a peace that only arrives after release. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks, it arrives quietly, like a soft breath after a long storm. You may not even realize it right away. But one day, you'll wake up and notice you're not carrying that weight anymore. That's a miracle too, the miracle of emotional freedom. The truth is, many people are praying for new beginnings while clinging to old patterns. But the universe won't deliver something new into a space you've refused to clear. If you want transformation, you must be willing to let go of your grip on what no longer aligns if it once felt necessary. Letting go isn't passive, it's deeply active. It's choosing presence over pressure. It's choosing love over fear. It's saying, I am willing to be without this so I can make room for what truly serves me. That decision shifts your frequency, and your frequency is what calls miracles in. Sometimes you don't need to do more. You need to release more. Not to shrink, but to rise. Not to escape, but to evolve. Letting go is not a retreat, it's a return. A return to flow, to clarity, to your original state of openness. And from that state, everything changes. You can't micromanage a miracle. It won't come on command. It won't follow your schedule. Miracles arrive on divine timing, not your timeline. But when you let go, you stop blocking their path. You create room for the extraordinary by releasing the grip of the ordinary that no longer excites your soul. Letting go is a declaration, I am worthy of peace. It's the moment you stop negotiating with chaos. You stop justifying the pain. You no longer need to explain your decision to release what dims your light. You simply honor yourself, and that honoring invites the universe to honor you back. When you release the outcome, you free your energy. You stop living in tension. You begin living in flow. That doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you start aligning. Letting go doesn't take away your vision. It strengthens it by removing all the blocks you placed between you and its natural arrival. There is so much abundance waiting behind the door of surrender. But that door doesn't open through force. It opens through trust. It opens when you say, even if I don't know what's next, I trust that I'm supported. That's the vibration of miracles, faith in motion. It's not always obvious what needs to be released. Sometimes it's a mindset, a subtle belief that says you're not good enough, that you have to earn love, that you have to prove your worth. Letting go means dissolving even the invisible chains, especially the ones that live in your self-talk. You may not see immediate results, but don't mistake silence for stillness. When you let go, the shift begins in the unseen. Energies recalibrate. Paths are rerouted. The miracle starts forming, not where you can see it, but where you can feel it. That's why trust and patience walk hand in hand. Letting go clears the fog. Suddenly, you notice opportunities that were always there but blocked by your tunnel vision. You hear your intuition more clearly. You feel lighter, more present. The miracle might not even be something new. Arriving it might be the clarity that what you already have is enough. Sometimes, letting go is simply choosing not to argue with life anymore. You stop fighting what is. You stop rewriting the past. You stop holding your breath, waiting for closure that may never come. Instead, you exhale. You soften. You choose peace. And that peace is a portal. You don't always need to explain your release. Not everyone will understand your letting go, and that's okay. Your life is not a debate, it's a vibration. Those who are meant to be part of your next chapter will feel your shift and meet you there. The rest will naturally fall away. Letting go is an act of courage. It says, even without knowing the ending, I will turn the page. You leave behind what no longer fits, not because it's bad, but because you're growing. You trust that the next line, the next chapter, the next season will bring what your soul truly seeks. If you're waiting for a sign to let go, this is it. The heaviness, the resistance, the constant tension that is your soul telling you, it's time. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to make space. The miracle isn't just in what's coming, it's in your decision to be free now. Letting go doesn't mean erasing your story. It means owning it and still choosing to move forward. It means acknowledging the lessons, the beauty, the pain, and still releasing the parts that no longer serve your future. That's not denial. That's deep emotional maturity. And remember, letting go doesn't diminish your strength. It reveals it. It shows you that you're no longer led by fear, but by faith, that you're no longer chasing, but choosing, that you've outgrown survival and are now stepping into creation. This is where miracles happen, not from control, but from space, from release, from trust. Chapter 8. Energy doesn't respond to desperation. Desperation is loud energy. It clings, it begs, it pleads. And in the realm of energy, that frequency pushes things away. The more you chase, the more what you want runs. Not because you're unworthy, but because desperation signals misalignment. It says, I don't trust I can receive this naturally. When you operate from desperation, you're telling the universe that lack is your dominant belief. You vibrate at the level of fear, not faith. And the universe doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you are. That's why you can do everything right and still feel blocked. Desperation clouds your energy. True receiving happens in calm. It happens in openness. It happens when you no longer grip the outcome like your life depends on it. Because it doesn't. You're already whole, already worthy. Desperation makes you forget that. It tricks you into believing you must fight for what's already yours energetically. People feel your energy long before they hear your words. When you speak or act from desperation, it repels. Not intentionally, but because the energy is tense, ungrounded, and heavy. Alignment, on the other hand, is magnetic. It's light, clear, and rooted in trust. That's what pulls opportunities in. Desperation is often disguised as ambition. It says, I'm just hustling. But beneath that hustle is a fear that if you stop pushing, everything will fall apart. That if you rest, you'll be forgotten. But energy doesn't respond to hustle alone. It responds to who you are while you're moving. There's nothing wrong with wanting deeply, but wanting from a place of fear is different than wanting from a place of knowing. When you know it's already done energetically, you stop grasping. You start preparing. You embody the outcome instead of begging for it. That's the energy of manifestation. Desperation comes from separation, from the belief that what you desire is far away. But energy collapses distance. It responds to vibration, not time. If you believe you're already aligned, you don't panic. You don't force. You simply continue becoming the version of you who naturally attracts it. You'll notice the moment you shift from desperation to trust, everything feels lighter. You're not anxious all day. You're not overanalyzing every delay. You're not obsessing over when, how, or who. You're just being, living, flowing. And in that space, things begin to come to you instead of running from you. Desperation creates pressure, and pressure blocks intuition. When you're desperate, you can't hear the subtle nudges that guide you. You override your inner wisdom in favor of constant action. But sometimes, the most powerful move is to pause, to breathe, to recalibrate your energy. Energy mirrors back to you what you consistently hold. If you're vibrating at fear, you attract more situations that validate that fear. If you're vibrating at peace, you attract situations that reflect safety and trust. Desperation isn't a flaw, it's a signal that it's time to return to alignment. It's okay to want more. It's okay to desire deeply. But when that desire turns into emotional gripping, it becomes toxic to your manifestation. You start thinking, if I don't get this, I'll never be okay. But your power comes from knowing you'll be okay either way, and that's what magnetizes the outcome. You can't fake energy. You can fake a smile, a confident tone, even positive words. But your energy always tells the truth. If desperation lives underneath the surface, it seeps into everything you do. That's why inner work isn't optional, it's essential. Energy is your foundation. One of the best ways to shift out of desperation is to reconnect with gratitude. When you appreciate what you already have, you change your energetic tone. Gratitude says, "I trust there is more where this came from." It softens your grip and raises your frequency into receiving mode. Desperation stems from time anxiety. It's taking too long. Why hasn't it happened yet? But the universe doesn't operate on your clock. It operates on alignment. It doesn't care about how badly you want it. It cares about whether you're energetically ready to hold it without crumbling. Sometimes what you think you want wouldn't even serve you in your current state. That's why it hasn't arrived yet. The universe isn't punishing you, it's preparing you. And the moment you drop the desperation, you create space for that preparation to finish so the gift can arrive fully formed. Energy doesn't respond to begging, it responds to belief. If you keep affirming, "It's mine," but vibrate with fear, there's a mismatch. And energy only responds to alignment. So the work isn't to beg harder, it's to believe deeper, to embody the end result, even before it's visible. When you detach from the outcome, you don't lose the dream, you free it. You allow it to breathe, to move, to find its way to you through unexpected routes. Desperation tries to dictate how it should come. Trust lets it arrive in divine form. That's the energy shift that unlocks miracles. Think of energy like a conversation. What are you saying through your actions, emotions, and thoughts? If you're constantly saying, "I need this or I'll fall apart," that energy isn't attractive. But when you say, "I'm at peace with the journey and I trust what's mine is coming," life begins to echo that calm. Desperation is rooted in lack. Alignment is rooted in truth, and the truth is you already have access to peace, joy, and wholeness within. What you desire is just an external expression of something you already carry. When you live from that truth, you radiate power, and energy always responds to power, not panic. Let this be your shift today. From grasping to grounding, from fear to flow, from desperation to quiet confidence. You don't need to chase what's already drawn to you. You only need to become the version of yourself who's still enough to receive it. Energy never lies, so don't beg. Align. Desperation always has an undertone of urgency. It screams that time is running out, that everything depends on this one thing happening now. But that very urgency distorts your ability to receive. Energy doesn't move faster because you're stressed, it moves clearer when you're still, centered, and unattached to outcomes. You might be trying so hard that you've unknowingly placed yourself in resistance. Manifestation is not just about focusing on what you want, it's about becoming an energetic match for it. Desperation focuses on the lack of it. Alignment focuses on the presence of it already being yours vibrationally. When you're desperate, you mistake waiting as punishment. But in reality, the universe uses time to purify your energy. It gives you space to shed fear, reset your vibration, and evolve into the version of you that's capable of receiving with stability. Desperation wants it fast. Alignment wants it true. Desperation clouds your decisions. It makes you accept less, settle more, and say yes to things that drain you. When you're aligned, you wait for what feels right. You don't jump at the first option, you hold your standard. Energy responds not to who pleads the most, but to who embodies the most trust. Desperation assumes there's not enough, that if you don't act now, someone else will take what's meant for you. But that belief alone fractures your frequency. The truth is, what's meant for you will never require force. And the more you believe in your own timing, the more you attract it with ease. Even in silence, the universe is always listening. But when your energy is tangled in doubt and impatience, it's like shouting mixed signals. One moment you affirm, "I trust," and the next you act out of panic. The universe doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your state of being. Sometimes you think you're doing everything right, scripting, visualizing, staying busy, but deep down you're still vibrating fear. That's the gap. And until that gap closes, energy won't flow. The work is not external effort, it's internal realignment. The quieter your energy, the louder your results. People think surrender means doing nothing, but true surrender is a powerful energetic statement. It says, I trust so deeply that I no longer need to micromanage the process. That energy holds faith. And faith doesn't rush, it doesn't grip, it flows, it receives. And that's what opens doors no force ever could. You can always feel when you're desperate, that weight in your chest, the overthinking, the obsession with signs and outcomes. But the moment you shift into trust, everything softens. Your breathing slows, your mind clears. That is the space where miracles feel invited, not chased. If energy were a mirror, it would reflect your dominant emotion. Are you radiating peace, or are you pulsing with anxiety? Because manifestation is emotional work before it's visual work. You don't just see the outcome, you feel it into existence. And that feeling must come from power, not panic. Your value isn't determined by how much you chase. You don't earn your desires by effort alone. You align with them by frequency. Desperation tries to prove. Alignment simply is. It knows. It trusts. It walks differently. It speaks differently. It becomes a beacon for everything it's ready to receive. Desperation turns everything into a transaction. It says, if I do this, will I get that? But the universe is not a vending machine. It's an energetic field responding to who you are. Letting go of the when and how moves you from transactional energy to transformational presence. Even your body knows when your desperate tenses. It aches, it tires easily. But when you shift into trust, your entire system relaxes. You begin to radiate calm confidence. That's not just spiritual, it's biological. Your nervous system aligns with your frequency. Energy always starts within. Desperation attaches your worth to the result. If this happens, then I'll feel enough. But that thinking reverses the formula. You don't get what you want to become enough, you become enough, and then what you want flows in. The universe rewards your sense of wholeness, not your lack of it. It's not wrong to want deeply, but make sure your wanting comes from expansion, not fear. Ask yourself, am I chasing this because I feel incomplete or because it's an expression of my fullness? Your answer reveals whether your energy is repelling or magnetizing your desire. Every time you feel the grip of desperation, pause. Return to stillness. Remind yourself, if I truly believed it was already done, how would I feel right now? That question is your reset button. It brings you back into alignment faster than any frantic action ever could. Desperation says, I need this. Alignment says, I welcome this. One is rooted in fear, the other in faith. The vibration of welcoming carries a softness, a knowing, an unshakable trust that whatever is for you cannot miss you. That's the vibration you must live in even before anything arrives. You don't have to pretend you're calm when you're not, but you can practice calm, breathe, meditate, ground yourself, take inspired action without expectation. Let go of timelines and return to presence. That's how you shift from needing to knowing, from forcing to flowing. Desperation is impatient energy. It wants shortcuts, it wants certainty. But the universe honors those who are willing to walk with grace, even in the unknown. That grace becomes your gateway. That patience becomes your power. And in that stillness, energy finally says, now you're ready. Remember, you are not behind. You are not late. Nothing is being withheld from you. You are simply being prepared. Trust that preparation. Release the desperation. And watch what happens when your energy no longer begs, but simply becomes the match for what's already on its way. Chapter 9. Align before you act. Alignment is the inner calibration that sets the tone for everything you do. Before you take the next step, before you launch the plan, before you speak the words, ask yourself, is my energy grounded? Action taken from alignment is powerful. Action taken from fear, pressure, or ego often backfires or exhausts you. Too often, we try to fix the external while ignoring the internal. We believe more doing will compensate for misalignment within. But true manifestation doesn't come from frantic activity, it comes from aligned intention. When your inner world is steady, your outer actions become magnetic and effortless. You can work hard and still feel blocked. That's because the universe responds to frequency, not effort alone. If your energy is scattered, anxious, or uncertain, no amount of productivity will yield peace. Alignment means pausing long enough to check your emotional and spiritual compass before you move. Alignment is clarity. It's that quiet knowing that you're not rushing from fear or pushing to prove. It's the deep calm that says, this feels right. When you're aligned, action flows like water. You don't have to force doors open. They open as a reflection of your inner resonance. We live in a culture obsessed with doing, but not enough with being. Yet it's your state of being that determines the quality of your results. Acting without alignment is like sailing against the wind. You burn energy, you struggle, and you go nowhere. Align first, and the wind works with you. You are always creating, whether consciously or not. The question is, from what state are you creating? If your actions come from lack, you'll manifest more lack. If they come from wholeness, you'll call in reflections of that wholeness. Alignment isn't a luxury, it's a prerequisite for true impact. Before you act, breathe. Ask, does this action come from love or fear, expansion or contraction, flow or force? That one moment of reflection can save you days, weeks, or even years of misaligned effort. It's not about doing less, it's about doing what actually works energetically. When you're aligned, you move differently. You speak with more presence. You make decisions with less doubt. You release attachment to outcomes because you trust the integrity of your vibration. That trust creates space for serendipity, for life to surprise you in ways logic never could. The ego wants speed, alignment wants precision, and precision creates peace. There's nothing wrong with ambition, but let that ambition be rooted in alignment, not survival mode. When your motives are clean, your path becomes clear. You stop chasing and start attracting. You might be tempted to act just to feel productive, but activity without alignment is spiritual noise. It might keep your mind distracted, but it doesn't bring lasting results. Instead, go inward. Tune your energy. Then act from that space of calm certainty. That's when doors open with ease. Alignment makes your yes powerful and your no unapologetic. You stop saying yes to what drains you just to keep the peace. You move from inner conviction, not outer pressure. That shift alone can realign your entire reality because you start living from truth, not obligation. Your energy enters the room before you do. People may not consciously understand it, but they feel when your actions are rooted in alignment. They trust your presence. They lean into your words. Alignment gives your voice resonance and your presence depth. It's felt more than seen. You don't need to constantly prove yourself when you're aligned. The results speak for you. Your peace speaks for you. Your ability to walk away from chaos speaks for you. You're no longer reactive, you're intentional. and intention is more powerful than any performance. Acting from alignment requires patience. It asks you to wait until the energy feels right. It's not procrastination oats, it's preparation. It's trusting that timing is sacred and that rushing only creates resistance. The right action, taken at the right time, can shift everything with minimal effort. Sometimes, the best action is no action. Sometimes, alignment means pausing, reflecting, realigning. The world may call it doing nothing, but energetically, it's everything. Silence is not absence. Stillness is not stuckness. It's often the space where your deepest clarity emerges. Aligning before you act also means checking your emotional state. Are you acting out of anger, out of panic, out of guilt? Those vibrations create results, but not the ones you want. Instead, wait until your energy is clear, until love, faith, or calm are leading. Then move and watch the shift unfold. You don't need a million plans when you're aligned. You need one clear intention and the energy to match it. From there, inspired action becomes obvious. You don't have to chase opportunities, they start recognizing your vibration and meeting you at your frequency. Misalignment is loud. It shows up as frustration, burnout, overthinking, and confusion. It's your system telling you something isn't right inside. Don't ignore those signals. They're not setbacks, they're sacred pauses. Invitations to realign before you take your next step. When you align before you act, your life gains coherence. Everything begins to work together, not against itself. Your relationships become more authentic. Your work feels more purposeful. Your path, though still mysterious, feels supported. You're not walking blind, you're walking aligned. So before your next decision, pause, feel, realign. Remember that the quality of your life isn't determined by how much you do, but by how aligned you are when you do it. When energy leads, results follow. And the more aligned you are, the less you'll need to chase what's already seeking you. You were not designed to live in constant resistance. Misaligned action feels like dragging yourself uphill in the wrong direction. It depletes your energy and leaves you feeling stuck, even when you're moving. But when you align first, your energy leads the way, and your steps feel light and purposeful. Alignment sharpens your intuition. It makes you pause before reacting, choose wisely before speaking, and act with intention instead of impulse. Desperate action often comes from emotional noise. But when you're aligned, the noise fades. In its place, you find a calm guidance that never steers you wrong. The world often rewards speed, but the soul honors depth. When you align before you act, you stop rushing for the sake of appearing busy. You learn to trust the power of stillness, to feel your next step before taking it. And often, that small pause becomes the exact shift that changes your trajectory. Action without alignment is exhausting because it's not rooted in your truth. You're trying to build from a shaky foundation, but alignment stabilizes you. It centers your values, your desires, and your energy. From that place, even the smallest step holds more impact than 100 misaligned moves. You don't need more motivation, you need deeper alignment. Motivation fades. It depends on external stimuli. But alignment is internal. It fuels you from the inside out. When you're aligned, you don't need to force discipline. It flows naturally because your actions match your inner frequency. When your actions are aligned, results are no longer your obsession, presence is. You begin to care more about how something feels than how it looks. You become more connected to your purpose than to performance. And that shift attracts more than effort ever could, because it's rooted in authenticity. Even your relationships improve when you lead with alignment. You stop overgiving, overcompensating, or shrinking to please others. You act from your center, not from your wounds. You speak from clarity, not confusion, and that self-honoring vibration reshapes the way others respond to you. In alignment, you stop second-guessing your every move. You trust your timing, your knowing, your preparation. You're no longer looking outside for signs, you've become the sign. You stop seeking confirmation from others because your inner compass is louder than their opinions. There's a subtle power in waiting for alignment, not waiting out of fear or delay but from trust. It means you're no longer interested in rushing into chaos just to prove you're moving. You'd rather take one aligned step than 10 misaligned ones, and that decision protects your peace. You can't fake alignment. You can fake action. You can fake urgency, but alignment is felt. Others sense it in your energy, in your words, in your eyes. And more importantly, you feel it in your body. When you're aligned, there's a sense of lightness. When you're not, everything feels heavier than it should. Acting while misaligned is like planting seeds in dry soil. You may do all the right things, but nothing grows. But when you wait for alignment, when the soil of your energy is ready, those same seeds flourish. Timing matters, but energetic readiness matters more. Many people confuse hustle with momentum, but momentum built from misalignment eventually crashes. It burns out. It leaves you wondering why success doesn't feel fulfilling. Alignment ensures that your momentum is sustainable and that your growth actually nourishes your soul. Sometimes, aligning before you act requires stillness others won't understand. They'll ask why you're not doing more. But you know that real alignment is invisible at first. It's energetic groundwork. And when you finally move, it's with a level of power that doesn't need to be explained. There's wisdom in pausing, in taking a breath before making the call, sending the message, or committing to the decision. That breath can change everything. It can realign your motives, reconnect you to your truth, and prevent 100 steps down the wrong path. Don't confuse constant movement with purpose. A compass doesn't spin at points. When you're aligned, you become like that compass. Steady, clear, guided. You no longer need to try every option. You simply follow the pull of truth, and that clarity saves you from wasted energy. Alignment brings peace not only in action, but in inaction. You no longer fear silence. You no longer panic when things are slow, because you trust the invisible shifts happening within and around you. You trust that what's meant to unfold will do so in divine time, not on your rushed schedule. Aligned action doesn't need validation. It feels right, even if no one claps, even if no one notices. Because it wasn't done for show, it was done from soul. That kind of action holds quiet power. It builds momentum that lasts. It creates results that reflect integrity, not insecurity. If something feels forced, pause. If something feels heavy, pause. If your actions are driven by fear, pause. These are not delays, they're divine invitations to realign. They are reminders that the quality of your journey is determined not by speed, but by vibration. Alignment is freedom. You're no longer trapped by external expectations or internal guilt. You're not moving because you have to. You're moving because your spirit wants to. And that difference changes everything. Your energy, your output, your peace. So before you act today, pause, breathe, feel into your being. Let your next move rise from your inner truth, not outer noise. And when it does, act boldly. Because when alignment leads the way, your steps carry the energy of miracles. Chapter 10. Detachment is a superpower. Detachment isn't cold. It's not careless. It's the highest form of inner strength, choosing peace over obsession, presence over pressure. It means you can want something without needing it to validate you. You can care deeply without clinging desperately. That's not weakness, it's mastery. When you detach, you stop making everything about control. You no longer need to grip outcomes like lifelines. You understand that your worth doesn't rise or fall based on what happens next. This calm neutrality allows you to remain centered, even when life is uncertain or plans shift. Detachment clears your vision. It removes the emotional fog that clouds your judgment. You begin to see situations for what they are, not what you wish they would be. From that place of clarity, your decisions become stronger. You no longer chase what isn't aligned. You walk away with confidence. You were never meant to be consumed by the things you care about. Love, success, healing, these are beautiful pursuits, but not prisons. Detachment allows you to hold space for desire without suffocating it. It gives your intentions room to breathe, to unfold naturally without force. When you detach, you create space. Energetically, this is crucial. Space is where the universe moves. Space is where miracles land. Most people don't receive because they're holding on too tightly. Detachment loosens the grip. It says, I trust, even if I don't know how this ends. Desperation and detachment cannot exist in the same vibration. The more you grip, the more you block. But when you let go, not in apathy, but in faith, you align with power. You become receptive. You open the channel through which everything good flows. That's when life surprises you. The ego fears detachment because it thrives on control. But your soul knows better. Your soul remembers that nothing forced is ever free, and nothing real can ever be lost. Detachment honors this wisdom. It allows life to come and go without shattering your center. There is no emotional freedom without detachment. You'll be pulled in every direction by every outcome, every opinion, every delay, unless you step back and reclaim your energy. Detachment is that reclamation. It says, my peace is not up for negotiation. Detachment transforms your relationships. You stop needing people to act a certain way to feel whole. You stop measuring your value through someone else's actions. You love from fullness, not from fear. And that kind of love is magnetic. It draws others in without pressure or control. Your biggest manifestations often arrive after you let go. That's not a coincidence, it's alignment. When you detach, you stop pushing things away with anxious energy. You stop chasing. And when you stop chasing, what's meant for you finally has room to reach you. True detachment doesn't mean you stop showing up. It means you stop trying to control every result. You do your part, you take inspired action, and then you release the rest. That release is not giving up, its energetic trust. It's surrender with power, not weakness. In detachment, you begin to trust timing. You understand that delay isn't denial, it's redirection, preparation, or divine alignment. You no longer rush the process because you know that when you're aligned, nothing can stop what's meant for you. That calm trust becomes your power. You become more powerful when you stop reacting to everything. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every situation requires a response. Detachment teaches you the strength of restraint, the beauty of observation, the wisdom of silence. That space holds your sovereignty. Detachment shifts your focus inward. You stop obsessing over external approval or validation. You begin to ask, am I aligned with my truth? Not, do they see me? In doing so, you rise above emotional chaos and reconnect with the quiet confidence of self-honor. Most people fear detachment because they think it means losing connection, but the opposite is true. Detachment deepens connection because it removes the fear of loss. You love more freely, express more honestly, and stay more present when you're not afraid of outcomes. Detachment is not the absence of desire, it's the absence of dependency. You can still dream, build, love, and grow. But your inner world no longer crumbles when the outside doesn't go your way. That unshakable inner foundation is what makes detachment a superpower. There is a deep peace that comes with detachment. You no longer wake up anxious for results. You stop checking constantly, hoping, waiting. You return to living, to creating, to breathing. And in that return, the very things you let go of begin to come back stronger or get replaced by something better. You can care without controlling. You can commit without attachment. Detachment allows you to fully engage without being consumed. It frees your energy. It reclaims your presence. And from that space, you become more effective, more creative, and more at peace. Let go of the belief that holding tighter will bring you more. Sometimes, holding tight is the very thing that blocks the blessing. Trust the flow. Trust your alignment. Trust that what's meant for you is not fragile. It doesn't need your panic to arrive, it needs your peace to stay. Detachment isn't the end of carrying, it's the beginning of sovereignty. It's the moment you realize that nothing outside of you determines your worth. It's the quiet decision to no longer tie your identity to circumstances. And in that freedom, you unlock the most magnetic, grounded version of you. The energy you carry when you're detached is different. It's lighter, freer, and more open. People can feel it. The universe feels it. You stop vibrating from lack and begin resonating with fullness. That fullness tells life, I already have everything within me. Let what matches that truth flow toward me. Detachment gives you clarity in decision-making. You're no longer making choices out of fear of missing out or fear of being alone. You choose from alignment, from what resonates, from what supports your peace. And when you choose like that, you rarely regret the path you take. It takes courage to let go of control. Most of us are conditioned to micromanage every detail, to fear uncertainty, to grip tightly to what we think we need. But control is an illusion. Detachment is the real strength. It says, I don't need certainty to be centered. When you let go, you let life flow. You stop standing in the way of your own blessings. You allow what's true to rise and what's false to fall. You're not here to force outcomes. You're here to align with what's right and let the rest sort itself out. That's the true art of receiving. Detachment teaches you to trust yourself. You no longer need constant confirmation. You don't beg for reassurance. You hold your inner knowing like a compass. That self-trust becomes your anchor, especially when outcomes are unknown or paths are unpaved. You don't attract peace by chasing it. You become peace and let it find you. Detachment is that becoming. It strips away the noise, the drama, the tension. It reminds you that peace isn't found in perfection. It's found in your ability to stay rooted no matter what comes or goes. The universe rewards detachment because it reflects trust. You've done your part. You've planted the seeds. You've shown up. Now your only job is to get out of the way. Let the timing align. Let the flow unfold. You're not the architect of everything sometimes. You're just the receiver. Detachment isn't about disconnecting from your desires. It's about disconnecting from the desperation around those desires. When you detach, you stop asking, when will it come? And start living like it's already on its way. That's the vibration that draws it closer. One of the highest forms of emotional intelligence is knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Detachment gives you that wisdom. It whispers, if you have to beg for it, it's not aligned. And in letting it go, you make space for what truly aligns with your growth and peace. You no longer live in extremes when you're detached. You're not overly excited or deeply disappointed by every turn. You've found your inner balance. Life becomes less about reacting and more about observing. That space between the moment and your response, that's where your power lives. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop tying your well-being to things outside your control. You can love without possession. You can want without obsession. You can be committed and still be free. That balance is what gives your life depth and direction. Think about the energy of a magnet. It pulls what matches its field, not because it's chasing, but because it simply is. Detachment makes you like that magnet. You don't have to run after anything. You become the match, and what's meant for you arrives with ease and precision. When you're detached, setbacks don't break you. They may sting, but they don't shake your foundation, because your foundation isn't built on fragile outcomes, it's built on inner security. That's the kind of strength no external chaos can undo. That's why detachment is unshakable. Not every opportunity is meant to be chased. Some are meant to be released. Detachment helps you recognize the difference. It tells you, you don't have to say yes just because it's here. Sometimes, your greatest power is in the no you give to what doesn't match your energy anymore. You become emotionally mature through detachment. You no longer take everything personally. You stop internalizing rejection. You understand that people's actions are reflections of their own inner world, not proof of your worth. That freedom allows you to rise above emotional entanglements. Detachment makes you less reactive and more reflective. You stop impulsively chasing validation, affection, or status. You start creating from stillness, from stability. Your life becomes an expression of truth, not of trying to fill the voids that fear created. The beauty of detachment is that it allows you to fully enjoy the moment. You're not constantly waiting for the next thing, the next text, the next validation. You're here, present, breathing, feeling, living. That presence attracts more than any performance ever could. Detachment dissolves the illusion that you need to fight for love, success, or purpose. You begin to understand that what's truly yours won't require emotional warfare. It will meet you with flow. It will feel like a click, not a chase. And when it's time, it will arrive without force. You become untouchable in the best way when you master detachment. Not because you don't feel, but because your feelings don't rule you. You feel them, you honor them, but you don't let them dictate your worth or direction. That inner calm becomes your shield and your guide. Let detachment be your quiet revolution. Let it be the proof that you don't need to scream to be heard, chase to be valued, or cling to be loved. Let it remind you that your energy, your peace, and your truth are enough, and that everything real will find its way to you when you stop holding so tight. Chapter 11. You already have what you're chasing. The greatest illusion is that you need to find something outside of you to feel whole. But what if the very thing you're chasing is already living within you? What if everything you think you need to become, you already are? The work isn't about acquiring, it's about remembering. You spend years chasing love, validation, peace, and success, only to realize that they were never outside your reach. They were waiting in the silence you avoided, buried under layers of noise, comparison, and fear. You don't need to become anything. You need to unlearn everything that told you you're not already it. Wholeness isn't something you earn, it's your natural state. The idea that you're broken or lacking was a belief handed to you, not a truth born from your soul. When you stop trying to fix yourself and start remembering your worth, the chase ends, and in its place, presence begins. The more you chase something, the more you affirm that you don't have it. This creates a loop of lack. But the moment you embody what you desire, feel it, live it, claim it, your energy shifts. You move from seeking to becoming. And from becoming, you start attracting instead of chasing. You are not incomplete. You are unfolding. The peace you seek isn't at the end of achievement, it's in the alignment with your true self. When you finally sit with yourself, without judgment or resistance, you begin to notice that the very things you were looking for were always echoing from within. The reason nothing ever feels like enough is because the external world can never fill an internal void. The chase is endless until you stop and look within. That's where your power is. That's where your worth has always been. The journey is not outward, it's inward. Success doesn't begin when you get the thing. It begins when you realize you already have the qualities that create resilience, clarity, vision, strength. You don't become successful the moment you win. You become successful the moment you align with who you really are. You've been taught that more equals better. More hustle, more effort, more goals. But what if more is what's keeping you from receiving? When you chase, you overlook what's already blooming in your life. Gratitude is the doorway. Presence is the invitation. Alignment is the arrival. What you're seeking is a feeling, not a thing. You want peace, love, abundance, freedom. But those aren't outside-in experiences. They're inner states you can tap into now. No title, amount of money, or relationship will give you what your own presence can. The key is already in your hand. Sometimes we chase things to escape ourselves. We believe that if we keep running, we'll outrun the silence, the wounds, the emptiness. But eventually, we all realize, what we were running from is where the truth lives. And that truth whispers, you already have what you seek. You are not here to spend your life searching. You're here to express what's already within. Purpose is not something you find. It's something you activate by aligning with your essence. You don't chase purpose, you live it when you stop denying who you already are. The chase creates anxiety. It tells you there's always somewhere else to be, something else to do, someone else to become. But what if you paused and asked, what if I'm already enough? That one question can end years of struggle and open the door to peace. You were born with everything you need. Life tries to convince you otherwise through conditioning, scarcity, and social pressure. But your intuition remembers the truth. Your soul remembers the light. You don't need to find the treasure. You are the treasure. Chasing implies distance. But the truth is, there's no distance between you and the version of you who has what you want. It's a frequency shift. It's a remembering. The more you embody that version now, the more effortlessly it becomes your reality. It's not about stopping ambition. It's about shifting your energy from lack to alignment. Chase with desperation and you push things away. Align with certainty and things come to you. The moment you act from wholeness instead of need, everything you want starts coming home. Stillness feels scary because it reveals the truth, but it's also the place where you realize there's nothing to chase. There's only alignment to step into. In stillness, the noise fades, and the truth surfaces. You were never missing anything. You were just distracted by the chase. The highest frequency you can embody is contentment, not complacency, but a peaceful knowing that you are whole here and now. From that place, your actions are inspired, your presence is magnetic, and your energy becomes a mirror for the life you once thought you had to chase. It's time to stop searching and start claiming. The clarity you want? It's already whispering within. The love you want? Begin by loving yourself as if you're already worthy, because you are. The freedom you crave. It starts when you realize your worth isn't up for negotiation. When you stop chasing and start remembering, everything shifts. You're no longer a beggar of life, you're a partner in creation. You're no longer looking for proof, you are the proof. And that's the real magic, realizing you already are the thing you thought you needed to find. So sit still, breathe, listen to the part of you that never needed fixing. Return to your center. The answer is not out there. It's already inside you, quiet, steady, powerful. You don't need to chase what's already yours. You just need to become still enough to receive it. Continued. Chapter 11. You already have what you're chasing. You are not lacking, you're layered. Beneath every doubt, every hesitation, every fear lies a deeper knowing. That knowing is quiet, but constant. And when you strip away the noise of who you think you're supposed to be, you uncover the steady truth of who you already are. The reason you're drawn to certain desires is because they already exist in some form within you. You don't long for what isn't part of you. You long to remember what you've forgotten. The desire to feel whole, loved, or powerful is not a sign of lack, it's a call to awaken what's already there. You've been chasing mirrorless external reflections, hoping to see yourself more clearly, but no mirror can show you what you won't accept within. The love, approval, success you chase. They become yours the moment you decide you no longer need them to feel worthy. Sometimes you confuse movement with progress. You run, hustle, climb hoping it'll lead to peace. But peace isn't a destination. It's a decision. You can choose it now, even in the middle of uncertainty, even when everything feels undone. That choice breaks the cycle of endless pursuit. Nothing outside of you can truly satisfy what's missing within. That's why the victory feels brief. The applause fades. The relationship, the goal, the imagination of them last unless they align with your inner truth. The more you seek wholeness outward, the more fragmented you become. You don't need to become something else to attract what you want. You need to become more you, the version that isn't hiding, performing, or proving, the one that's still, grounded, real. That version has always been enough. It just got buried under layers of not enoughness. Every time you affirm, I need, you send a signal of separation. But when you affirm, I am, you collapse the distance between you and the life you desire. I am worthy. I am abundant. I am already whole. These aren't affirmations. They're energetic facts you forgot. You're not chasing the thing. You're chasing the version of you who has it. And that version already exists within. She or he isn't far away. They're just waiting for you to stop doubting and start aligning. Stop striving and start embodying. Stop chasing and start remembering. Even your pain holds a reminder. It says, look within, not to escape the world, but to return to your source. That's where your healing begins. Not in the next achievement, not in someone's approval, but in that still place where your soul says, you are already enough. The universe responds to who you are being, not what you're begging for. That's why embodiment is everything. Don't wait to feel successful, feel it now. Don't wait to feel loved live like you are. The energy of I already have it draws it closer than a lifetime of reaching. You already have strength, it just hasn't been fully called upon yet. You already have wisdom, it just hasn't been fully trusted. You already have love, it just hasn't been fully received. What you want is not distant, it's dormant, and your awareness is what awakens it. Your true self doesn't chase, it radiates. It doesn't beg, it magnetizes. It doesn't fear loss because it knows that nothing real can be taken away. When you reconnect with that version of yourself, you begin to move differently. You stop seeking validation and start embodying truth. You were never meant to earn worth through effort. Worth is your birthright. It's not tied to how productive, attractive, or successful you are. When you stop performing for value and start being from value, life begins to meet you where you are, not where you pretend to be. Imagine if today you stopped striving to be someone better and started honoring who you already are. The compassion you show yourself would expand, the pressure would dissolve, and from that place You'd move with more power, not less. That's what remembering feels like. When you stop looking outside and start listening inside, everything changes. You hear different thoughts. You feel different urges. You no longer chase things that drain you. You begin to choose what reflects your truth, not your fear. That shift rewires your entire life. The version of you that has peace, clarity, purpose, it's not far off in the future. It's available now, but you have to slow down enough to meet them. The chase keeps you running. The pause brings you home, and home is where all the answers have always lived. The need to prove is a byproduct of forgetting your worth, forgetting your wholeness. But when you remember, you stop forcing your voice to be heard. You speak from knowing. You act from groundedness. That energy can't be ignored. It moves things without shouting. Chasing makes you a stranger to yourself. It pulls you away from your center. But the moment you stop running, you hear the whisper, "You've always been it." The strength, the light, the love. It was never something to get. It was always something to remember. Return to the now. That's where your power lives. Not in what's missing, but in what's present. In your breath, in your being. In your decision to stop searching for yourself in places you were never meant to find yourself. You are already what you seek. So let the chase end. Let the proving stop. Let the fear dissolve. And in that space, begin again, not as someone trying to become enough, but as someone who finally sees, "I already am." From that truth, everything else aligns. Not because you chased it, because you finally matched it. Chapter 12. The universe moves when you're still. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it's the alignment of your energy. In a world that glorifies speed and chaos, stillness becomes a superpower. It is in the moments when you pause, breathe, and ground yourself that you become most magnetic to what is meant for you. When you are still, you are no longer interfering with the natural current of life. You stop paddling upstream. You stop forcing timelines and outcomes. You enter a sacred neutrality where energy can settle, clarity can emerge, and unseen forces begin to align on your behalf. The universe doesn't respond to panic, it responds to presence. When your energy is anxious, it sends mixed signals. But when you drop into stillness, your signal becomes clear. You stop vibrating from lack. You radiate certainty, trust, and faith. That's when things begin to shift. Many people believe they have to hustle constantly to attract what they want. But the truth is, rest is a strategy. Stillness is a portal. Silence is a magnet. You are not less powerful when you pause. You are simply surrendering to a greater intelligence that moves mountains for you. Stillness reconnects you to your inner compass. In the noise of the world, it's easy to lose your way, to confuse urgency with importance. But in stillness, your soul speaks again. It reminds you what matters, what's aligned, and what can be released without fear. The greatest manifestations often come after stillness, not action. Because it's in the stillness that you calibrate your energy. It's in the stillness that your intentions become purified. You're no longer operating from ego or desperation. You move from truth, not tension. Stillness is where the recalibration happens. It's where you shift from chasing to allowing, from pushing to receiving, from fearing to trusting. This shift is not passive, it's powerful. It's the moment your frequency rises above resistance and becomes a match for miracles. You are not behind, you are not late, you are not stuck. These are illusions created by a mind addicted to movement. The soul knows that stillness is progress. Every pause is a prayer. Every breath is a reset. Every quiet moment is an invitation for alignment to return. When you are still, you stop interrupting what is unfolding. You allow the process to work on your behalf. You stop picking at what isn't ready. You trust that timing is sacred, that preparation is necessary, and that the universe is never late when you are calm enough to receive. Stillness dissolves illusions. It reveals where your fear has been masquerading as action. It shows you what you've been trying to control, manipulate, or rush. And in that revelation, there is release. You exhale. You surrender. You come back to yourself. The most powerful beings don't need to be loud. They don't need to always be seen. Their presence speaks. Their energy leads. Stillness gives birth to that kind of presence. It deepens your aura. It expands your vibration. It draws what is meant for you, effortlessly. Stillness also reveals what you've been ignoring, the discomfort, the truth, the inner knowing. Most people avoid stillness because it confronts them. But if you can sit through that confrontation, you gain something unshakable, self-awareness. And from that place, you move with purpose. In stillness, you access higher guidance. Answers you were forcing finally arrive. Signs appear. Clarity dawns. Not because you tried harder, but because you stopped trying at all. The universe can finally speak when you stop talking over it with your worries and noise. Stillness is not inaction, it is the most intentional action you can take. It's a statement to the universe. I trust the process. I don't need to force anything to feel worthy. I am ready to receive. And from that posture, life begins to respond in the most unexpected ways. You've been conditioned to believe that rest is laziness, that silence is wasted time, but the soul knows different. The soul knows that the seed grows in the dark, the wave builds in the pause, and the breakthrough arrives not in noise but in still, open surrender. In the stillness, you remember. Your energy does the attracting, not your effort alone. You begin to focus not on doing more, but on becoming more aligned. You shift from exhausting yourself to elevating yourself, and that elevation is what changes your entire reality. When your mind is still, your energy becomes clear. You stop broadcasting confusion. You start sending out a signal of wholeness. That signal is what the universe listens to, not your words, not your plans, but the frequency behind them. Stillness aligns that frequency. Stillness is where faith lives. It's easy to believe when you're in motion, when things are happening. But true faith is tested in the quiet, in the pause. Can you still trust when nothing seems to be moving? Can you still believe when all you have is breath and presence? Being still is not about doing nothing. It's about doing the inner work, letting your nervous system reset, letting your thoughts realign, letting your emotions surface and settle. It's about clearing space so what's meant for you can finally arrive without being blocked by noise. So the next time you feel the urge to panic, to push, to control, pause, be still, breathe. Remember, the universe is already in motion. You don't need to beg it to move. You only need to step back, align, and allow. Because the truth is simple, the universe moves most when you don't. Stillness allows your nervous system to decompress, giving your body and mind the space to reset. When you're constantly stimulated by tasks, conversations, scrolling, or worries, you override your internal rhythm. But in stillness, your natural flow returns, and the energy you emit becomes clean, calm, and clear. When you sit in silence, the universe doesn't stop moving, it listens more closely. Your energy becomes a signal, not static. And in that deep quiet, what you've been trying to manifest can finally find its way through. Stillness isn't a lack of activity, it's a frequency of surrender. There's a wisdom that only appears when you're quiet enough to hear it. It's not loud. It won't compete with your distractions. But when you pause, it speaks. and its voice is more precise than anything you could plan. That guidance is your soul in dialogue with the universe. The ego wants constant movement to feel important. It believes progress only happens through control. But your higher self knows that movement born from stillness is far more impactful than endless activity from fear. When your actions are rooted in alignment, they carry power. Stillness brings you back into harmony with divine timing. You stop obsessing over deadlines and outcomes. You remember that there's a larger rhythm to life, one that doesn't follow your clock, but always arrives right on time. That trust becomes a bridge between your desire and its delivery. In moments of deep stillness, healing accelerates. You're no longer resisting emotions. You're no longer distracted from what needs to be felt. Pain begins to release. Anxiety starts to dissolve. The body realigns. You become whole not by doing more, but by simply being fully present. Stillness teaches you discernment. When you're constantly rushing, everything feels urgent. But when you slow down, you start to see what truly matters. You say yes from alignment. You say no from clarity. And in that space, your energy becomes sacred, not scattered. Many of the things you're chasing are already circling you, but your chaotic energy blocks their entry. Stillness softens your field. It tells life, I'm ready to receive. And in that readiness, doors open, ideas come, people align without force, without begging. Stillness removes the layers of pretending. When you stop performing, you meet your truth. Maybe it's uncomfortable at first. Maybe it exposes what you've been avoiding. But in that raw awareness lies your liberation. You can't change what you won't face, and stillness helps you face it. There's a magic in trusting the pause. It's not always about knowing what's next. It's about knowing that not knowing is okay. That space of uncertainty, it's a sacred womb where transformation brews. Something is forming, and your job is simply to hold space for it. Most of your anxiety is a result of resisting the moment. You're either stuck in the past or rushing toward the future. But when you choose stillness, you reclaim the now. And in the now, nothing is missing. In the now, you are safe. You are enough. You are aligned. Stillness helps you detach from identity. You stop needing to be the achiever, the fixer, the doer. You return to simply being a human, a soul, a breath. From that place, you realize you're valuable not because of what you produce, but because of who you are, inherently. Stillness is the birthplace of intuition. Without stillness, your intuition gets drowned out by logic, fear, and outside noise. But in silence, you remember how to hear your inner voice again. It doesn't shout. It gently nudges. It guides you without needing explanation. You don't need to figure everything out. Stillness reminds you that some answers come without effort. Some clarity is revealed, not chased. And the more you relax into the unknown, the more it becomes known piece by piece, moment by moment, breath by breath. Stillness renews your creative power. Inspiration doesn't always come from doing it, comes from being. When you pause, new ideas rise. Solutions appear. Creativity is not born from chaos, it emerges from the calm clarity that only stillness can create. There's a strength that comes from stillness, an unshakable presence. You walk slower, but more purposefully. You speak less, but more impactfully. Your energy becomes refined, and people feel it. You don't have to say much. Who you are speaks volumes. In stillness, resistance loses its grip. What you were forcing no longer feels urgent. What you were clinging to begins to loosen. You realize you were never supposed to carry so much. You were never supposed to exhaust yourself chasing what was already on its way. Every storm eventually calms. Every wave returns to still water. So too does your life. You are not meant to live in constant movement. You are allowed to pause, to rest, to reflect, to recalibrate. This is not weakness, it is sacred maintenance for the soul. When you master stillness, you stop reacting to everything. You become the eye of the storm, not the chaos. You no longer need to defend, explain, or prove. You know who you are. And that stillness within you becomes louder than any noise around you. Let stillness be your new strategy. Let it lead you, restore you, guide you, not just as a temporary escape, but as a way of life. Because in a world that constantly pulls you out of yourself, stillness is the way you come home. And that's when the universe begins to move for you. There's a sacred rhythm to life that you can't hear when you're rushing. It pulses beneath the surface of your chaos, waiting for you to slow down enough to notice. Stillness brings you into sync with that rhythm. It's not about stopping, it's about moving in harmony with something greater than yourself. Stillness dissolves the illusion of urgency. It reveals how often you act from fear disguised as responsibility. You begin to question the pace you've accepted as normal. And when you stop reacting, you start creating deliberately, intentionally, peacefully. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to receive the next lesson, the next blessing, the next realization. Stillness reminds you of that truth. It silences the inner critic who says you should be farther, faster, better, and replaces it with presence. When you are still, you become deeply magnetic, not by doing more, but by becoming more anchored in your being. People feel it. Opportunities feel it. Life responds to the energy of someone who doesn't chase boot, simply allows, aligns, and embodies their truth. There is a difference between waiting and stillness. Waiting is rooted in lack, in absence. Stillness is rooted in trust. It says, I know it's already done. I don't need to grasp, beg, or perform. I am here. I am ready. I am enough. And from that state, everything flows. Stillness teaches you to listen not just to your thoughts, but to your body, your emotions, your breath. You begin to understand what your exhaustion is really saying, what your tension is hiding, what your silence is revealing. And in that awareness, you begin to heal. Most people fear stillness because it forces them to confront what they've avoided. But that confrontation is the doorway to freedom. Stillness is where your shadows soften, where your wounds speak, and where your inner light, buried under years of noise, begins to shine again. When you stop needing to prove your worth through action, you start living from worth. Stillness gives you that shift. It takes you from seeking approval to embodying peace. It moves you out of your head and into your heart where your deepest wisdom already lives. Stillness doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful in a different way. Instead of reacting, you respond. Instead of panicking, you perceive. Instead of trying to control, you allow. This is a deeper kind of strength, the strength of presence over performance. The world will never stop trying to pull you into motion, but your power lies in choosing when to move and when to be still. That choice defines your energy. It defines your life. Because from stillness, you don't just act. You act with purpose, with clarity, with alignment. Stillness gives you space to recalibrate your intentions. You stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, who am I becoming? You shift from chasing results to embodying resonance. That shift changes not just what you attract, but how you receive it. In stillness, you learn the difference between ego and intuition. Ego shouts, intuition whispers, and until you quiet down, you can't hear the difference. But once you do, your decisions become cleaner, your direction becomes clearer, and your energy becomes unstoppable. Stillness breaks the addiction to urgency. You realize that not every text needs an instant reply. Not every plan needs to be perfect. Not every day needs to be packed. You learn to breathe, to be, to exist without performing, and that's where your life truly begins. Every time you choose stillness over reaction, you reclaim your power. You stop giving away your peace for temporary distractions. You no longer let circumstances dictate your energy. You become the calm in the chaos, the anchor in the storm, the light that doesn't flicker. Stillness is not detachment, it's deeper connection. When you're still, you feel more, you notice more, you love more. You begin to see beauty in the ordinary. You no longer need intensity to feel alive. Simplicity becomes sacred. Quiet becomes fulfilling. In stillness, the heart softens, the mind settles, the soul expands. You begin to realize that most of your problems were rooted in overthinking, overdoing, overreaching. But here, in this quiet space, you need nothing. And needing nothing becomes your power. Your highest self doesn't operate in panic. It flows from stillness. It doesn't rush decisions or chase timelines. It observes, it listens, it trusts. Stillness gives you access to that version of you, the one who knows what to do without needing to force anything. Let the world rush. Let others prove, push, and perform. You're not here for that pace. You're here to align with something deeper, something timeless, something true. And you only find it when you stop and return to stillness, where everything real already lives. The transformation you seek doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it comes in a breath, in a pause, in the decision to do nothing, but be fully present. Stillness is not the opposite of progress. It's the space that allows progress to unfold without resistance. So when life feels too loud, too fast, too overwhelming, don't add more noise. Don't run harder. Return to stillness. Sit with yourself. Listen again. Because in that quiet space, the universe is already moving, and now it has a clear path to reach you. Sometimes the loudest action you can take is complete stillness. When you stop trying to control every outcome, life begins to unfold in ways you couldn't plan but always needed. The peace you feel when you let go isn't emptiness, it's alignment. You've just listened to a reminder that calm is not weakness, it's wisdom. Trust the flow, detach from the noise, and remember, the universe responds not to pressure but to presence. Stay still. Stay grounded, and let what's meant for you arrive in perfect time. Ask ChatGPT.